Hello everybody, it's me GhostCritic back on a cold and frosty Sunday morning to talk comic books with you. It is my comic book review video and I had 6 books this week, much less than last week, thank God. So I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt this video will be a lot shorter. Thank the gods, and I'm sure you're breathing a sigh of relief too. And as always, if you're new to me, just to let you know that I kind of rate the books from least liked to my pick of the week, and obviously I'm going to be talking about plotline, storylines, so there's going to be spoilers in there. If you've not read any of these books that I hold aloft, then please either skip on till you can't see that cover anymore, or stop the video, go away, read it, come back and hear my opinions of it. Right, let's crack on so this video doesn't go on very long. Right at the very bottom, and it's one of those books that I am dropping, so I don't really have that much investment in this title anymore. It's Wonder Woman issue number 35. I guess this is kind of a one-shot single storyline about Jason, is it Jason? Wonder Woman's brother. And, oh, I'm so glad I'm dropping this, because this is so unoriginal, this is so trite. It tells the early years of Jason being brought up by one of the Argonauts here on Earth, squirreled away from Themyscira because obviously can't have any blokes hanging around there, and to save his life and not have the goddess Hera get really upset that Zeus has been basically porking other women again and has conceived this young man, and to save his life she allows this Argonaut to look after him in secret. Yes, it's a storyline we've heard many times before, and it doesn't really get any better because we see him being brought up giving the kind of best family values, and yet he still is in a bit of a stink about it. You know, he's given love, he's given attention, he's given training for his kind of burgeoning powers that he's getting. But obviously this has to be done kind of under the radar, not to bring attention to him, because then that will bring attention to the gods. Hera will find out and his life will be in danger. I really thought this would be more to do with how he turned evil, and maybe you people who are still reading this will find out, because I think this is the last issue I need to pick up now due to my comic book stores ordering. So I'm never going to find out, and I really don't care, because if this is anything to go by, then the story is just very cliche ridden and it just did nothing for me. And what obviously a lot of people have picked up that I've heard have read this and reviewed this is, it's a Wonder Woman title with virtually no Wonder Woman in it. We get one kind of page of like Wonder Woman battling, but this is seen through the eyes of Jason, and he looks on in not particularly awe, but there's almost a hint of jealousy there that she's out there doing all these great things, being seen by everybody, but he is being kind of hidden away and not being allowed to use his powers as he would like to. I'm just not bothered anymore, and this will probably be the last time you will see Wonder Woman being spoken by me. Moving on to the penultimate issue of the 12 maxi series Kamandi Challenge, that has each issue written by a different writer, drawn and coloured by different artists, and it's the same adage that I've put on most of the issues halfway through this run, in that there are the nuggets of good ideas in these books. However, because of the nature of the book, where a different artist, a different writer picks it up from the cliffhanger that the last one wrote, they don't have time to kind of enrich this nugget of an idea, not to expand it, to make it feel more weighty of a story, and they just become silly, chaotic, over the top one-shots, which are fun enough to read, but as a whole series don't really gel together. We had at the end of the last issue Kamandi supposedly finding his mother just as she gets shot down in this takeover of this big base where animals, the anthropomorphic animals, are being either killed off or experimented on. But what transpires is that he finds out that what he thought was his mother was actually a robot, and in her kind of dying, I won't say breaths because she's a robot, but in her dying moment she mentions his father is still alive. And then it's just complete chaos. It's just complete chaos. It's very action orientated. There's lots of kind of gunfire and killings and the like. And then suddenly they're off into space to this space station where we have this kind of miniature-sized despot who's been like organising all this, and he's kind of in charge. It was just a little bit of a mess, and I don't even think Walt Simonson's artwork really saves this book either, which is what I was looking forward to. There are flashes of Simonson's brilliance, but altogether it felt a bit lacklustre. It felt a bit phoned in, and there wasn't enough of those brilliant moments of Simonson's art that you've seen in the past to make up for the more lacklustre pages. And the climax of this book is Kamandi takes this rocket ship that he's trying to send off to smash into this space station, and he ends up falling to Earth through space. How he's going to survive that, well, that's for Gail Simone to sort out in her next issue. And as I said in Wednesday's video, yes, the next issue is the last of the series, and of course it is a bigger book. Yes, it's going to be 40 pages long. It's $1 extra. There's apparently a epilogue as well, written by Len Wein. So that's going to wrap it all up. Obviously, I'm going to finish off the series. It's a shame that this didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do, if that makes sense. It just feels like at no point did all these writers and artists get together in whatever way, whether it was all meet up in a secret hideout or just speak to each other on Skype even and discuss the flow of this storyline. It just felt like, let's throw some big names, some up and coming, well, not even up and coming, a lot of them have a well established writers. It's like a superstar roster of DC writers and artists, but they basically didn't speak to each other. All they got was the last issue of the book, and then they had to do something with it. I'm sure they read, at least certainly the people much further on down the line had read all the previous issues, but there was no chance for them to make a coherent story that followed the previous X amount of issues. And it's such a shame, because Kamandi is a great character, one, if not my favourite Jack Kirby creation. And I think that's another thing that was a problem with this book. We lost the concept of honouring Kirby and what would have been his 100th birthday celebrations, and it became more about what big artists, what big writers' names can we get on this book to make it seem appealing, which is such a shame. Moving on, and in the right order, we've got The Flash, issue number 35, Black Hole Rising. I'm not even sure this is kind of like part of a story arc anymore, because it's never part 1 or part 2, it's just the name of this particular issue. And at the end of last issue, we saw Mina return, and the guys get duped into thinking she was back for good reasons, that yay, Mina's back, we thought she was dead but she's alive, hurrah, and then she turns evil. She's part of Black Hole, this kind of insidious science troupe that want to take and experiment on the Speed Force. The only good thing to come out of last issue was that Mina managed to extract the kind of reverse flash powers that Barry had been dealing with over the last few issues, which I really didn't like. So he's back to being just the regular bright colourful Flash, but not so much bright and joyful, because obviously Mina turns on him. There's a big fight scene and she gets away and leaves Barry and Wally. They just get left. Yes, Kid Flash is injured. It was either a case of let's save Kid Flash or go after and capture Mina. So he does the right thing and sticks around for Kid Flash. And then there's this kind of sub-story going on at the side with his work colleague who's working at Iron Heights, and obviously she isn't happy about being there, and this is all Barry's fault basically, because he's basically a screw up at his old job, so that's why they're now at Iron Heights, though he doesn't seem to be there very often. And she's looking into who's the big villain who's doing all these bad things in Central City. And right at the end, there's been a murder. Is it his colleague? Is it somebody else? You don't know. You just see a hand with blood dripping off it at the very end, and the boss of Iron Heights calling Barry to come to Iron Heights and investigate. Dude, sweet. It was all right. What do I think? It's on shaky ground at the moment. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to hold out because I enjoy this more than I do Wonder Woman, obviously, because it's further up on my liked reading list. But there's just something missing. I don't know whether it's because it hasn't been given a hefty storyline to get my teeth into, and everything seems to be a bit choppy and changey. I don't know whether they introduce who's behind kind of Mina's kind of turn, I guess, and why she's in the big bad, and I think it's Raging, the God of Lightning, who seems to be a bit of a bad guy. Hopefully this will be more of a threat, or more of a hefty threat for not only us readers to get our teeth in, but obviously Flash as well. It's all right. It's middling. That's all I can really say about the Flash. The artwork is fine. I really like it. By who have we got on the art at the moment? Marici. It does the job. There's some great action sequences. Some not unusual but more imaginative use of the panelling in the fight scenes. But like I said, it's an average. It's a average to above at the moment for me. Moving on to the top 3 books this week, we're kicking off with issue 49 of Astro City, Kurt Busiek and Anderson on art, and this is a one-shot story before Kurt Busiek reaches issue 50 and starts a longer story arc that he hinted at on the back page of this particular issue. And I guess it's kind of inevitable in the current kind of, I guess, political climate that certainly America are in at the moment, that stories are going to veer towards what is going on in real life. And I'm not sure that I'm that happy about it. It's difficult. What we have here is the story of a young female journalist, and her story growing up, and her father, who is this great big scientist who's trying to push the bounds of science and all the things it can do, but at the same time he's a very strong protester for basically anything, and he's trying to kind of almost topple the government, make them admit to the kind of nefarious doings they're up to in the Astro City world at large. And what we have is the introduction of these, I think they're called reactors. I think, if I remember, they're called reactors, and they are these almost superheroes that that they don't go out and fight people. They protect them. There's certainly a difference that is made known in this particular issue, that whenever kind of innocent people are put at risk, these reactors turn up. They kind of, the way I read it is they kind of take over people's bodies, and they defend the rest of the people within these, particularly these protests. And apparently she thinks her father dies halfway through that. He just disappears, never seen again. But then she goes to a protest and these reactors turn up, and she gets this idea that her father's one of these reactors, and through this, because she can smell a certain kind of air that her father invoked, and that was, I think it was lemon drops and cigar smoke, I think, if I remember rightly. And she believes her father is still alive, but as the story goes on we find out of course she's not, and she's just kind of imagining all this. As I said, there's a lot of not so subtle political agenda going on in this book, which, as I said, in the current climate, this is going to happen. But at least it kind of fits the story that Kurt Busiek wants to tell in this. It's not one of the best, I feel, that he's done, purely because of that, because there feels like there's kind of a real life agenda being done on this. I mean, Kurt Busiek is not shy in giving his real life opinions, especially over on Twitter. And fair play to him, that's his portal to let his opinions be known. He can use his Twitter handle for whatever he wants to do. But I just feel that when it comes to comic books, unless you're particularly writing a story completely based on what is going on in the current climate today, then these kind of books, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was a nice little one-shot story, but I want it to go back to the full kind of superhero story arcs, but seen from, you know, the people that are living within Astro City. Penultimate book, just missing out on pick of the week, was The Kints, Department H, Matt and Charlene, getting ever closer to the end of this run, and the finish finale of this, I think it's up to issue number, it's always so hard to find the numbers on here, 29, issue number 29 of this book, and it's kind of another kind of flashback story, fleshing out one more of the characters that we've been following since issue 1, and it's this guy here, Q. And I guess in this instance, I think, I want to say, I believe this kind of counts Q out from being the murderer of our main protagonist's father. And we get his backstory, the way he has got to where he is now, being kind of the muscle, I guess you'd call him, of this scientific team, and all the kind of trials and tribulations that he's gone through to get where he is now. And we follow him from having, I guess, an abusive father that he eventually attacks and kills, and then heads off out into the world and gets into all sorts of trouble, has a quick flip in prison that he escapes from, and just kind of tries to keep himself out of trouble, but trouble kind of always seems to find him, until he finds the father, the leader of this scientific troupe, who gives him the chance to kind of redeem himself, to be the better person that he believes and wants to be. So like I said, the story kind of to me anyway, makes it known that Q here is not the murderer. So we can count him out. So we're eventually dwindling the numbers of who the culprit could be. Along the way, we still have our team of surviving scientists stuck in this kind of midway point, waiting for their submersible to charge back up so they can go further up to the surface. Of course, will they be allowed to kind of breach the ocean and come up for air, as there seems to be some big virus that is ravaging the earth up above, but they've got the cure. They have the cure with them, and they should really be allowed to make it through and save the whole planet, I guess. But great stuff, always enjoyed this. I'm going to be sad to see it go, but this was always a finite story, and that's fine by me. So my pick of the week this week from Valiant Comics, another Matt Helm story. It's Exo Man of War issue number 9, and this book, oh, it just fills me with so much joy. And we see the fallout of Arik finally deposing the tyrant emperor that's been running this planet, and kind of taking over land after land and expanding his empire. But we see the fallout from this, that yes, he's deposed this awful man, but that doesn't mean everything's going to be hunky-dory from now on. Now he's gone. In fact, it feels like things are so much worse, because there isn't, however bad he was, there isn't that person who's been in power keeping everything under control, despite the kind of awful ways that the last emperor did. At least everything had kind of boundaries, but now it's just chaos. Now the tribes throughout the planet and the land are free from the oppressive power of the last emperor. It's just chaos, and Arik has to go from one disaster to another, trying to keep the calm, and not really doing a great job with it, and neither does his surrounding people think he is either. And so it's up to some heads of the tribe to do exactly really what Arik has just done, and dispose Arik from his newly titled emperor, as they enlist what seems to be kind of a science fiction bounty hunter to do away with Arik, and hopefully, you know, bring some order to their world. I love this book because, especially over the last few issues, because it's had this fantastic narrative going over it. This kind of disembodied voice narrating the storyline. Think of kind of like the opening scenes of films like Lord of the Rings, that kind of voiceover going through it, and there's elements that like really kind of chill you as they read through what is going on in the story, and there's just something about it that really is affecting, and it's just great storytelling anyway. And the artwork as well, obviously by Clayton Crane, this continuing with this kind of painted style. It's just fantastic to look at. Gorgeous pages, well realised characters. No one really looks like each other, and they've all got their kind of distinct appearances, and it just looks fantastic. So always right at the top of my reading list to start on whenever this book comes out. It's just a fantastic read. And that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. We did it, almost half an hour. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and opinions on the books. Please let me know what you thought of the books that I picked up if you're reading them down in the comments section below. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button. and join me on my merry way. On Wednesday I will be giving you some fun stuff that will be happening in December, so look out for that. Until next time, bye bye.